So let's talk about this transition. Short history. So about 10 months ago, I realized that God was leading us in this direction. So we went out to dinner, my wife and I, Cindy and I, and Kyle and Lindsay. And I said, hey, are you open to this? Would you pray about it? And he prayed about it and said, yeah, I think it's right. And I said, well, I think so too. And so that started a process about March or so of last year. And then pretty soon we brought that information to you guys and let you know that there was a transition that was going to begin to happen. And we explained to you that it was going to be a three-phase transition, that it was going to be phase one was going to be generally characterized as I do and he watches. And then phase two was going to be we do together. And then phase three would be he does and I watch. And so there would be a very intentional, systematic handoff rather than something that's herky-jerky or abrupt, right? And so phase one has been playing itself out all through 2019, and it's behind us now. Starting the first of the year, we're in that phase two, where we're leading together. Now, in that phase, what that means is there's an incremental transition of responsibility. So right now, at the beginning of phase two, I'm leading 4 primary teams: the church elders, the church council, the staff, and the Sunday planning team. And I'm a part of that team. I'm in charge of those teams. And if a final decision needs to be made, where we just somebody's got to make a decision, and so what are we going to do? I'm the guy that makes that decision. But in all of those teams, all of the decisions are done collaboratively. All the planning and vision casting and decision making happens as a team effort and happens in almost every case on a unanimous basis. But I lead those teams. And right now, at the start of 2020, that's true. By the time we get to the end of this second phase, which will probably take us most of the way through this year, we haven't set a date. This isn't something for you to set a stopwatch, or a timer. Ding, when the bell goes off, that's, the end of phase two. We're going to just move down this road intentionally and incrementally and aggressively. But the idea is that in all 4 of those teams, by the time we get through phase two, I won't be the guy in charge of those teams. Kyle will be. And that'll begin the third phase where he does, and I'm there to support and coach and encourage.
Yeah, and like Craig said, emphasizing the fact that all of those teams are led with teamwork. If you are on a team around here at Mission Church, you know that we work together as teams. I'm on a lot of those teams, and Craig isn't a dictator leader that dictates from the top down, making those decisions, and so we're changing the dictator from Craig to me. That's just not the way that we run teams. So, for example, on the Sunday gathering team, I have been a part of that team ever since I was hired as the youth pastor 10 years ago. I've had say into the message content that we speak, into the things that we're doing creatively for messages and Easters and Christmases. We do that together as a team of staff and volunteers who decide what those things are. And so, as Craig said, it's not that we're changing the voice in that. We're just changing the level of that decision-making process over the next few months throughout this year of who has that level of leadership and how that's changing, with the intent that the decision-making and the teamwork is going to continue to be a huge part of how we do everything around here, like it has been since the beginning.
Right. So even as we get through to the end of phase two, I'll still be on those teams, but I won't be the one where the buck stops, and I won't be the one leading those teams. That'll be Kyle at that point. I'll continue to be involved, and my wife and I both intend to be involved here at Mission Church on an ongoing basis. My wife's still working on a part-time basis together with her great staff running AKP, and she foresees doing that for the foreseeable future. And I want to just continue to be helpful and supportive, and if my new boss will have me, I want to be a part of the speaking team and continue to provide whatever direction, input, encouragement, and wisdom that I can. So we plan to be around. There's no requirement for us to step out or step away for any period of time. Nobody's micromanaging this process. We're figuring it out as we go.
Again, with the intent to help people find and follow Jesus and how we can lead people well and how we can care and love for people well. None of that changes, and my heart to help people and lead people and help people find and follow Jesus has been heard on the team since I was hired as the youth pastor 10 years ago, and it's been heard in those conversations, like I mentioned, with the Sunday gathering team, planning those messages. I've been a part of the management team, so the hiring of the last multiple people that we've hired, I've had a voice in that, even in the seat that I sit currently, and so a lot of those things aren't changing, just the level in which that responsibility is transferred over the next few months into this year is going to take place.
Yeah, for instance, we said phase one is I do and he watches, but the reality is you've actually engineered several decisions, including the name change. Now, I signed off on it as the guy with whom the buck stops. He brought the idea to some of our meetings, and I liked it. And so I said, why don't you come to the council and bring that, presentation? And he did. And so I was the final decision on the name change, but you were actually leading that process, had the passion for it, articulated well the reason behind it, the why behind it. And so you actually aren't just watching. You're actually already co-leading or participating in the leadership process. So it's not a real neat and tidy thing. It's just a progression, a natural progression relationally, and a natural progression as responsibility is handed off to Tanner. That frees up Kyle more and more to take responsibility that I would be handing off to him.
Yeah, and again, as far as how it tangibly affects what we normally deal with, you've already noticed, if you've been paying attention, that my voice has been more readily heard on a Sunday morning as part of the speaking team, speaking more than I would previously as the youth pastor, who's also speaking to students on Wednesday nights. And so some of those things you will see as we ramp this up. But again, a lot of them are the stuff that is behind the scenes, leading the staff teams and all of those kind of things that are part of the process that will affect how we do things, but not in a way that we're like, okay, so what do I see that changes and how does that change, and all of those types of questions that maybe some of us would have.
So the last thing I want to say about that, and we'll open it up for questions, is I just want you to know a little bit about my heart, which is also Kyle's heart. The more we go through this process, the more we realize, even though we're unique individuals and have different leadership styles and stuff, we have a very similar heart on what I want to address now, and that just simply is that for me personally and for Kyle, our heart's desire is just to do the very best job we can to follow Jesus, to lead you well, to serve you well, and help you follow him well. And so anything that we do, any decisions we make, anything that we express, and ideas and vision that we pursue is motivated from that. I love you. And I've loved this church for decades, and I know you love this church. You wouldn't have stuck it out as a youth pastor for 10 and a half years if you didn't. So that's our heart. We love you. We love God. We love you, and we want to serve you and lead you in the best way that we possibly can. And there's no, sometimes in these kinds of things, people start thinking, well, what's really going on? What's the real story? You're hearing the real story right now. This is it. This is as transparent as we know how to be. This is just us in all these processes doing our very best to follow Jesus, serve you well, and lead Mission Church into what God has for us next.
It's great. Couldn't have put it better myself. I love you as well. I want to say that. I love you too. So, yes. Questions?
Question and answer. What are those big old red numbers back there mean?
You're fine. Just
okay.
I just ignore that stuff back there.
Okay.
You're telling me I'm done? Nah, we're good.
All right. So questions, feel free.
No? Okay. Sweet.
Come on, somebody. Okay. I actually think that's a great suggestion. There are some challenges with that from a technology standpoint, and
yeah, there is a list on the website. They don't have pictures, but there is a current list of staff on the website.
Right.
Yeah.
I think at one point we had pictures with the names. We can revisit that. An app with a game.
Oh, pair the face with the name? Yeah, that's good. Tanner and I will just do from the beard down, and you have to guess which beard it is. We'll vary length, and you have to figure it out.
That's what's that?
No.
All right. Question? Anybody?
Yeah, right here.
Yep.
Dude, that's a great. I would love to. If you gave me a golf cart, I'll drive it around anywhere you want.
You know, I kind of want to do that again. That was actually a lot of fun.
I was just looking down here at the scrape.
We
on
have
the
a
stage,
scrape
so.
that's been there ever since that Father's Day. I scraped the edge of the molding with it, and it was pretty new molding at the time. I felt really bad, but oh man, that was so fun.
Any other questions? Ooh.
So that's a great question. Are there any other questions? Well, I already alluded to the first. So there's two phases there. I'm going to be working full time all of 2020, and we just described what that's going to be about. What follows in 2021 and beyond is the first phase is a part-time phase. I don't know how long that will last. I don't know exactly what those responsibilities will be, because I'm just going to be the guy that wants to help the team in whatever way I can help the team best, right? So I'm not presupposing what that's going to be. I'm not dictating what that's going to be. I know that I still bring skills and experience and wisdom and can help, but exactly how I'll help, I don't know. But it'll be part-time for a while. At some point, both Cindy and I will go from part-time to full retirement, but that may not be for another 2 or 3 years. I don't know. What we do after that, well, that's a great question. I have a real interest in international partnerships. I actually leave for Thailand tomorrow for 12 days with our partner, Think Small Ministries. They're reaching children in countries all over the world, but they started in Thailand, and they're rescuing children out of very high-risk situations that involve human trafficking, drugs, and domestic violence. And along with presenting tools to help those kids be able to avoid those dangerous situations, they're also presenting Jesus. And for now almost a decade and a half, they've been doing this in Thailand and other places around the world, and they've seen 300,000 decisions for Christ and counting. It's something that's happening in Central Africa and India and over into Laos. And I'm privileged to be able to go and see what they're doing and see how we as a church can be a more effective partner together with them. They're getting invitations to go into Latin America. In fact, some places in the United States are actually wanting to bring their ministry in. And so I love that kind of thing. To your question, if I have opportunities to do that kind of thing, to travel or to help promote international partnerships, I have a real heart for what God's doing around the world globally.
Yeah, in the back. Yeah. The change that's going to be in me, or the change in the position? Yeah, that's a great question. I'm still going to be me. I'm just transferring into a different level of leadership. So, again, when we started this conversation back in the day, I've loved youth ministry, and specifically Fusion and middle school and high school students in Spokane Valley. And when you've been doing youth ministry for as long as my wife and I have, people ask you all the time, what's next? When are you when are you going to stop doing this? When are you going to lose the energy? And our answer was always, we know that we are where God's called us. And we know that we're doing what God's called us to. And until he calls us to something else, we're just going to keep doing that and keep our heads down. And we've had offers to move and go other places across the country and to do other ministry and to take other jobs. And it just never turned out to be what God was calling us to. We knew that Fusion and middle school and high school students in Spokane Valley was our calling. So, rewind 10 months ago when Craig brought this in our lap and said, hey, and we talked about it as a team and a management team and a staff, and hey, is this is something that we would want to do? It was really just Jesus kind of offering us this next step, and us kind of going, wow, is that, we've never thought about that. That was never something we were attaining to. It's never something we were trying to work towards, and hey, this is what we want to get to one day. So my wife and I kind of looked at each other and said, is this really what we want to do? We love youth ministry, and we love what we're doing, and really just felt God calling us, and me specifically as I transitioned in this role, and as our church was deciding what's next for Mission Church, we found that God was leading those things in the same direction. So I'm still passionate and excited about helping people find and follow Jesus. I'm still super excited and passionate about helping middle school and high school students find and follow Jesus. So that's not going to change at all just because I'm in a different role. So I'm just excited to see what that looks like in the level of leading the team in a different way than just leading Fusion in that. But to be honest with you, I don't think a whole lot's going to change, if that answers the question. I'm just excited to see what God has for this next stage as He's leading us, and I'm hanging on for dear life a little bit, to be honest with you. Like, okay, God, this is you leading, so sure, let's go for it. You got it, because I don't have it. I'm not, again, and this is crazy, like, I think we're trying to help understand it as a team and as a community. We're all here. There's not Craig and then me and then this staff. I mean, here's all of us, and I'm just excited that God's put me in a position with all of us doing this thing called life and in this community to put me in a position of leadership, but we're all in positions of leadership, and I'm excited to go, hey, let's all of us go in this direction and help people find and follow Jesus, and I'm excited for that.
Yep. Absolutely. All right.
Yeah, she absolutely is, just in different ways. My wife and I lead Fusion Youth Ministry together, so if anyone stepped in on Wednesday night, they would have a very different view of that. My wife and I lead that team very, very strongly together. She is my team member, and she's my life partner, and she serves in a lot of different areas on the team. And so she's going to continue to do that as she's a member of the music team, leading that kind of stuff. She leads she's a kids director. She directs the kids worship team. So she's very, very, very active within our church, just in different ways. And so she's going to continue to do that. My wife works a full-time job, and she's going to keep her full-time job. And she's going to continue to partner and love our church as my wife and as the person that she has been in the areas that she has. And so we're excited together about what that looks like. But it is going to look different than Cindy. I'm going to look different than Craig. I'm not Craig Langhans. Newsflash, and my wife is not Cindy Langhans, and so they have the leadership that they have provided for this church. We are all so thankful and so grateful for, and I would never even try to step into Craig's shoes, because that's not my calling, is to step into Craig's shoes, and that's not my wife's calling, to step into Cindy's shoes. We love them, and we care about what they have done, and we're excited to see what's next for us, and so yeah.
I think how are we doing here? Yeah, we need to wrap it up. I think we'll just let that be it for questions. If you have more questions or comments, this is an ongoing conversation. It has been for us to get to the point that we're at here tonight, and it will be an ongoing conversation at various levels going forward. So feel free to be a part of that conversation. Bring your thoughts, your questions, your suggestions, that kind of stuff. So we're happy to have your input as we go forward and embrace changes. I want to end on this note, however. Tonight has been a lot about change, right? And change, we all know this, that change is inevitable. Change is a part of life. Change is predictable. Whether you want it to come your way or not, change comes. And we also know that for many of us, it's difficult to process change. We don't like change. Some of us, anyway. There's a few of us that embrace change and look for it and are eager to have it, but the majority of us, I think, don't relish the idea of dealing with change. It's just a natural tendency. However, I think it's important for us to see change at the personal level in our own individual lives, but also in our collective life as a community of believers, to see change not as a barrier or an obstacle or a wall or a hindrance or a speed bump, but see change as a doorway into what God has next for us. My wife and I lived in the same place for over 20 years, and it was very comfortable, and it would have been very easy just to stay there. But we stepped into a new season of our life. We didn't change, but we moved to a new location, a different house, and started a new chapter of our life. It was a scary step, but it was a step that God was in, and we took that step. And this is a lot like it is in your own individual lives, and for us as a church, we're stepping through the doorway of opportunity into what Jesus has for us next. Now, change aside, let me end on this note. Tonight should be, and day by day going forward, our attitude should be not just a focus on what's changing, but what's not changing. What's not changing? Hebrews 13 says that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is God, and he does not change. There's no hint or shadow of him shifting or turning, the Bible says. It says very many pointed and strong things about the fact that God does not change. Jesus is the same every day. And so he is who unites us. He is the anchor for our soul. He is the foundation of this church. He is the point of this church and the reason why this church exists. And he's not changing. Not only is Jesus not changing, but our love for one another is not going to change. You can change the name of the church and you can change who sits on what leadership seat in the bus, on the leadership bus, but we still love each other. We're still a family, and that doesn't change no matter what other external things change. Our assignment has not changed. Jesus said, I want you to go and make disciples of all nations. That was the assignment 2,000 years ago, still the assignment today, and no matter how we express it or how we articulate it or how who we collaborate with or partner with, that assignment has not changed ever, and it isn't changing now in 2020 for Mission Church, and it will never change. Jesus said, this is what I want you to do, and this is what we want to do, is we want to help people find and follow Jesus, become his disciples, and that's just us wanting to do our part in fulfilling the commission that he gave to all of his followers. So with me, embrace the change, number one. And number two, remember what has not changed and will never change. It's the same Jesus, the same love, the same assignment, the same mission, the same purpose, and we're in it together. It's the same family. We're just embracing what God has for us next. Can you say amen to that? All right. Shall we close in prayer? Would you do that?
Jesus, we just thank you so much for everything that you have done in our community. Lord God, we thank you for the history, and we celebrate the things that you have done over the last so many years. And God, we look forward to what's next. We anticipate and expect big things from a big God. And we thank you so much that you choose to use us and that we get to be a part of what you're doing in Spokane Valley. And I pray that the mission of this church to help people find and follow Jesus would just explode with passion this year as we get excited about what you are doing and what you are doing in us and through us. God, we thank you so much for who you are. We give this all to you in your name.